Alright guys, Kremp again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL coaches have voted on which teams they think are the best and the worst for the upcoming CDL season here on Black Ops 6. Some surprises on this list. A surprise at number 1, an OpTic Texas for the second year in a row, coming in 3rd place on this list. Last year though, they won the World Championship. Will they prove to be the underdog yet again? Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, Hacienda is in the game as of the 5th of December. What I'm hoping is they put it straight into the game, because the 5th of December is tomorrow, and it's obviously a returning map into the game. We saw back in Black Ops 4, a legendary COD map. Maybe not the best of Black Ops 4. People are talking about frequency. People are talking about Arsenal. I'd like to see those maps come back as well. I wouldn't even, at this point, be opposed to bringing back 6-Star and Rio or whatever from last year, because, you know, those were good maps as well as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Hacienda's in. The current map pool, we know, isn't the best. We've talked about it since the start of the game. I'm hoping they put it straight into the map pool. The point is, this Friday is when the matches begin on the 6th. On the 5th, there's a new map in the game, which is 99.99% guaranteed to be better than at least one of the maps that we presently have in the pool. So I am in favour of putting it in immediately, as are many others. The question, I guess, is, have the pros agreed what's going to go? I think this is why it can be sometimes a bit of a challenge to make these map pool changes. The Hacienda in is like so evident that surely they have to do it. But I don't know what the pros have agreed. Have they talked about it? Because I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the pros haven't really been discussing what map's going to go so far, and then all of a sudden the Hacienda arrives, the pros are voting on it in the chat, but, you know, they can't decide in time for the CDL to make a decision, and it turns out the first couple of weeks until Christmas, we're still playing without Hacienda for really no reason at all. So what I'm hoping is the pros are deciding either today or over the last few days what map is going to go when Hacienda comes in, because hypothetically they could put this in for every single game mode into the CDL. They may not do that immediately. I'd love to see it. I don't really see why they couldn't, because everyone knows it's going to be better than most of these maps, I would say. Red Card is the least competitive like map, I would say, that the pros are presently playing. I think if you asked all the pros, most of them would probably say Hacienda for Red Card is the way to go. In Hardpoint, in Search and Destroy, and maybe just add it in for Control as well, because there's only 2 maps in Control as it presently stands. So I'm hoping they do that. I'm just not especially confident, because there can be a bit, you know, of a delay in the turnaround here in the CDL. The players may agree what's going to go, but, you know, what if some teams don't agree? Because, yeah, Red Card might not be the best, but some teams will be good at it, and they don't want it to be gone for a map they don't know whether they're going to be good at or not, and that's always unfortunately how these discussions go. If it were me, in an ideal world, I would set this up where the players don't choose the maps. The league chooses the maps based on advice and various sources. But if I was the league, I'd be saying, all right, guys, I just don't care what you have to say. We're putting Hacienda in for Red Card. That's how it's going to be. Because in most other esports, as far as I'm aware anyway, the players don't get to choose the map pool. They may, you know, their opinions are relevant at the start of a game, but over time, it's the developers and the league. They choose what maps are played in competitive. The teams have to adapt. Thought this was pretty cool last night as well. So Dashy made it to the top 250. To be fair to Trey, there have been more hackers getting banned, and therefore it's more possible for players to actually make it to the top 250 in ranked as of late. But yeah, Dashy made it, and having made it, it turns out that actually they'd put into the game his profile photo. Wasn't just any old profile photo, it was him and his World Championship trophy on the right hand side. So it says, yeah, CDL Championships won, born in Canada, 2024 CDL champion. Thought this is kind of fire. You guys remember a couple of years ago when the world champions would be like honored in the Warzone map? They used to put the banners on the stadium, which was kind of cool, but equally it was a little bit confusing, because it's like, well, they didn't win the World Championship in Warzone, so what's that all about? This is kind of a nice way to, you know, commemorate the players, I'd say. So I thought it was pretty cool that Dashy made it here. Would be nice if these were, like, in the game anyway, even if they weren't in the top 250, but it is what it is. And yeah, that's the CDL card that Dashy has for making it to top 250. Thought that was kind of nice. And, yeah, 2024 CDL champion, of course, kind of replicating this image from back in July at the, what was it called? The Credit Union of Texas Arena or something like that. And, of course, this year year there's going to be another Texas event. Not sure if it's going to be there again or not. It was mega though, and it had the center stage. Definitely not opposed to that. This is your talent, by the way. I'm not sure if this tweet is still up, which I found a bit confusing, because I went to find the original tweet this morning, and rather than the screenshots, and I couldn't really find it that easily anyway. So, don't know if there's any changes here, but regardless, it's pretty much as expected. Puckett, Alleycat, and Nameless, they're back in business. It was obviously maybe going to be Clay as well, although I will say it's unlikely they wanted to fund a 4-person desk for the regular season matches. You know, Clay maybe could have come in for the tournament and, you know, maybe could still do potentially, although obviously he's the Falcons coach now. And then as casters go, it's Miles Chant, it's Maven, it's Merc, it's iHold, Shift and Study. So I'm happy with that as always, plus special guests joining as ever throughout the season. So thought that was cool just to see it confirmed before the new season. Another big update though of yesterday as well is LDefiant. Of course, we talked about this game for some time as it was in the run-up to release, and then the absolutely atrocious release that it had. Was it out? Was it not out? Why were there so many delays? I think the game was kind of fun. It had some promise. There were elements of it which I thought were good, but obviously it was meant to be this like Call of Duty killer, right? Because it was meant to come along and kind of bring back some of the elements of old school Call of Duty, but for various reasons it just wasn't able to really execute on that. And obviously the player base doesn't justify the expense, and they're going to be shutting it down. Of course, this is aBeZy's game that he was working on now for several years. I think it's really unfortunate, the timing of all this, because a couple of months ago we heard rumours that like LDefiant ain't gonna last that much longer, but yet the team was like, oh no problem, LDefiant's charging onwards, don't know what you guys are talking about. And now it turns out shortly before Christmas there's, you know, loads of employees getting just completely fired and laid off, basically, not just from this project but from Ubisoft at large. I think there were like 177, yeah, as he says, about 180 people are going to be laid off, and those not affected will move on to other Ubisoft projects. So yeah, crazy stuff, honestly. I thought it was interesting, and I know that X has been getting roasted over this, obviously, because JKL obviously then tweets about it. X has obviously been getting roasted over this. You guys remember back in August when Dashy tweeted out to X, let me know if you need me to stream your dead game, I'll bump those numbers up if the bag is right, of course. And yeah, maybe the bag should have been thrown. So yeah, I don't know. It's just sad for the people who are working on the game, I think, the timing of this, but there were probably various reasons why this game was somewhat doomed to fail. It's going to be around for another 6 months, and after that it's going to be sunsetted, is the way that they describe it. But let's talk about the COD League, because it's back in a couple of days' time, and which teams are going to be the best. This is OpTic's run through to Madrid, so they play Boston, New York, of course that's Cloud9 this weekend, they then play Vancouver Surge and Gorillas, that's Gentlemate next weekend, and then they play Falcons, Thieves and Toronto to close out their run before they get to the Madrid tournament at the end of January. There is also, however, on the 10th of January, a minor tournament they will also play, but as yet we don't know who is going to be playing each other in that one. Of course, it's on YouTube, as we full well know. But last night, the boys came out, and aBeZy sent out over the last couple of days the coaches poll to the coaches of the teams. If you guys aren't familiar with this, every single coach gets aBeZy's Google Sheet, I guess, is how he does it, and they vote anonymously, not for their own team, they can't put their own team in there, but they vote anonymously for the other 11 teams, and they rank them in order 11 to 1, and, you know, that's just how it goes. They submit it back in, we add up all the numbers, so if a team gets first, they get 11 points in our ranking. If they get last, they get 1 point, so the minimum number of points you can possibly accrue is 11. One team has 11, and the maximum possible points is 121, if you are considered unanimously the best by all parties. So let's have a look at how this is going to be lining up, because this is the S to D tier bracket that is effectively being formed because of this, but what I find more interesting generally is the numbers. But yes, the coaches agree. Now, these aren't always going to be 100% accurate, but of course the coaches, they have experience playing every other team in practice over the last few days, and therefore, and obviously that's, you know, mostly like Hardpoint really, Search and Destroy isn't so much included. If Search and Destroy was included, I would say that Ravens could be higher, because on paper their search, you know, the team is good good at Surge. Right now, though, they're not looking so good. There always are going to be some outliers in here compared to what actually happens when the season begins, but it's generally a pretty good representation of where the teams are currently lining up. And it may surprise many to say, but according to the coaches, the #1 team, by a relatively considerable margin, is the Los Angeles Thieves. They received 115 total points out of a potential 121. And yeah, according to the coaches, right now in practice, Thieves are playing the best COD. This doesn't massively surprise me. And I talked about it on the Dope show. We put it out on YouTube yesterday that I have very high expectations indeed for this Thieves roster this season. Right now, according to the coaches, they're playing the best COD. They are the team to beat. FaZe are in second at 109. OpTic are in third at 100. Now, OpTic were in third last year as well, and we'll get to that in a second. Of course, this year, they won the World Championship. So they're in third again. This shouldn't be a massive surprise, I don't think. OpTic have an incredibly high ceiling they had last year. They're going to have their bad moments they had last year. They're going to be somewhat inconsistent at times, I would say. They had that last year, but they're going to be able to capitalize and still win as a result. So I think that I'm not sure I'm looking at this and saying, oh, OpTic, they should have made the change, they should have brought in Scrappy or whatever, or should have got HyDra given they were available. I think that's more so a question for FaZe down the line, because FaZe obviously passed up on some level the opportunity to sign HyDra and Scrappy, who were both available this offseason. Thieves got both of them, but obviously OpTic are the world champions. So I think this is kind of expected, to be honest, and I would still say among these top 3 teams, the team that wins the most events here is very much up for debate. I will say, over the course of the season, I don't expect OpTic to be the #1 seed. They were 3rd seed, I think, at the end of last season. FaZe have been the #1 seed for the last, 5 years. Thieves, I think, have a serious potential to knock them off their perch this year. 4th, though, goes to Toronto, actually quite comfortably. Beans, CleanX, Insight, and JoeDeceives, 86 points. That's bang in the middle of OpTic at 100 and Cloud9 at 69. So, Toronto quite clearly that 4th best team, according to the coaches right now. Then Cloud9 and Surge both tied here at 69 points. So these are your other contenders for the 4th best team, really. And Cloud9 apparently are in 5th and Surge are in 6th, but it's obviously very close between the both of them. Then Heretics, pretty interesting at 7th. They get 62 points. A very interesting number that we'll mention in a second with Heretics that EasyMac pointed out on socials. Then the Gentlemates team, 58 points. So right now they're in kind of that 8th position. Then it drops down to 48 points. So most teams tend to agree there is a relatively clear-cut top 3. There's a clear-cut top 4, then there are 4 teams basically in the mix for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then you get to the best of the rest, which is Rocker, then Ravens, then Boston, and then, of course, Falcon. So it's pretty much expected, I would say, the way this has gone. But I will just quickly look at last year's, just to kind of compare who did well, because this was last year's power rankings, and it was relatively good at predicting who was going to be good over the course of the season. But, New York Subliners last year, they ended up being the 4th best team, right? And, won an event in the end. They were slotting into B tier at the start of last season. So last year it was FaZe, Ultra, then OpTic, and the start of last year OpTic were considerably behind, according to the numbers. But obviously, they made that progress back up very quickly. Then it was Thieves looking good at the start of last season with Afro, Kami, Ghosty, and JoeDeceives. They were kind of nowhere once the season actually began. Surge were pretty good, and they were 5th at the time, and then, of course, the illy stuff happened. Subliners were in 7th, according to last season's early year coaching poll. Miami were in 8th. And then, it was kind of all a bit of a toss-up. Boston actually got 41 points last year, despite the fact that they were horrific. And Gorillas are better than people expected them to be as well. So it's a pretty good list. I mean, you look at last year's power rankings, you say, okay, that's pretty good. But compared to what happened in the actual season. But there are a few outliers here. And there will be again this year, right? I don't expect, what we see in this to be absolutely bang-on accurate once the season gets underway. But I thought this was quite fascinating because there were 12 first-place votes given out. Thieves got 6 of them, FaZe got 5 of them, OpTic got 0 of them. They got a few second place votes, but nothing in first. Miami got a first place. Now, I don't know who you think voted Miami as #1, but very interesting, isn't it, that Miami had 3 votes inside the top 4, including a #1 vote, and they got 5 votes, though, at 8th or 9th. So they seem to, I don't know if they're a very matchup dependent team. They're slamming some teams, getting slammed by others. But this is what I was saying over the last few days about Miami, depending on who you ask. Some people say say they're very, very good. But yeah, that's kind of fascinating to think about that Miami, tough to place them because some teams, coaches seem to think they're excellent and some teams aren't convinced at all. So very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Will Los Angeles Thieves actually be the best team this season and potentially even knock FaZe off their perch as the #1 CDL standings team over the last few years? How many events would all of those top teams win? Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.